My mother-in-law demanded a DNA test for my son. The results made her collapse in tears. It was my father-in-law's birthday. The whole family had gathered around the dinner table, plates clinking softly, glasses half full, the low hum of casual conversation filling the house. My 3-year-old son Leo played on the living room rug with his toy cars. Every few minutes he'd run over to his grandfather, arms stretched wide, asking to be picked up. It felt like a normal evening. Until it wasn't. My mother-in-law, Margaret, slowly set her fork down and looked straight into my eyes. "This child is not part of our family," she said coldly. "I want a DNA test." The kettle slipped from my hands. Boiling water splashed across the floor, but I barely noticed. "What did you just say?" "You heard me perfectly," she replied. "Red hair, green eyes. Who in our family looks like that? Everyone has brown eyes. Daniel, are you blind? Look at your son." My husband went pale. His sister suddenly became very interested in her napkin. So they had talked about this before. "Mom, stop this right now," Daniel said sharply. "I will not stop," she snapped. "I know you were diagnosed infertile after that infection when you were 20. The doctors told you the truth. And suddenly she gets pregnant after 5 years of marriage? How convenient. I stayed silent for 3 years, but no more. I have the right to know who I'm calling my grandson." Leo burst into tears at the shouting. I rushed over, scooped him into my arms, and held him tightly against my chest. "Fine," I said, my voice shaking but firm. "We'll do the test. And when it proves that Leo is Daniel's son, I will never step foot in this house again." The next 2 weeks felt like living inside a storm. Daniel kept saying he believed me, but sometimes when he thought I wasn't looking, I saw it, that tiny shadow of doubt in his eyes, the kind a mother plants with just a few poisonous words. The truth was, we had struggled for 5 long years to conceive. Doctor visits, treatments, tears. Eventually, we turned to IVF. It worked on the very first attempt. The doctors called it a miracle. Leo was born healthy, bright red hair, striking green eyes. I thought our nightmare was finally over. But from the very beginning, Margaret made comments. "He looks unusual. Who does he take after? That temperament certainly isn't from our side." Every year, the hints grew less subtle, until they became accusations. 14 days later, my phone rang. "The test results are ready," the clinic said. "Please come in." I knew somehow that this would be one of the worst days of my life. The geneticist was an older woman with kind, steady eyes. She carefully spread the documents across her desk before speaking. "The results are unexpected," she said gently. "Daniel is not the biological father of your child." The world tilted. Daniel inhaled sharply, like he'd been punched. "But this is not a case of infidelity," the doctor quickly added, raising her hand. "You underwent IVF at New Hope Fertility Clinic in 2022, correct?" "Yes," I whispered. "I need you to authorize another test immediately. Contracts, clinic records, everything. This is extremely important." For 3 days, the doctor dug through archives and medical protocols. Then she called again. This time, she asked for DNA samples from Daniel's parents. Margaret practically glowed with triumph. "Well, Anna," she said smugly, "looks like the truth is finally coming out." I said nothing. Daniel barely spoke to me. The way he looked at me, it was as if I were a stranger. A week later, we were summoned back to the clinic, the entire family this time. Daniel's parents sat across from us. The head physician was there, and a lawyer. My hands were ice cold. The geneticist began. "Leo is not Daniel's biological son." Margaret let out a satisfied little scoff, but the doctor continued. "However, Leo is your biological grandson. Genetically, he is related to both of you." Silence crashed over the room. "What?" Margaret whispered. "That's impossible." The clinic director looked as though all the color had drained from his body. "In 2022, during preparation for your IVF procedure, a catastrophic error occurred," he said hoarsely. The biological material was switched. Instead of Daniel's sample, the lab used material belonging to his brother. The room spun. "What brother?" Daniel asked faintly. "I don't have a brother." "You did," my father-in-law said quietly. In that moment, he seemed to age 10 years. "You had an older brother, Alex. He was 23 when he died in a car accident, 2 years before you were born." Margaret covered her face with both hands. "Alex had been undergoing cancer treatment," my father-in-law continued, his voice trembling. "The doctors suggested preserving his genetic material, just in case he survived and wanted children someday. He beat the cancer, but 6 months later, he was gone." Tears streamed down his face. "We never told you about him, Daniel. We thought it would spare you the pain." "The sample was stored in a cryobank," the clinic director said quietly. "Due to a database error and identical last names, his sample was mistakenly selected for your procedure. The responsibility is entirely ours." I looked at Margaret. She was sobbing uncontrollably against her husband's shoulder. "My Alex, my boy," she cried. "Leo is Alex's son, my grandson, my own flesh and blood." Then suddenly, she dropped to her knees in front of me, right there in the office. "Anna, forgive me," she begged. "I'm a monster. For 3 years, I rejected my own grandson, the child of my son who is gone. I accused you when you gave me the very miracle I prayed for over 20 years. Her body shook with grief. My father-in-law wrapped his arms around her, crying openly. "Alex had red hair," he whispered, "and green eyes, exactly like Leo. I saw it from the very first day, but I was too afraid to believe it, afraid I was losing my mind." Daniel stood frozen. Then slowly, he walked toward me and fell to his knees beside his mother. "Anna, I doubted you," he said, his voice breaking. "I'm so sorry." Time passed. One evening we visited Daniel's parents again. Margaret brought out old photo albums with trembling hands. There he was, Alex, a young man with bright red hair, laughing eyes, and a mischievous smile. Leo stared at the photo. "Is that me?" he asked. Margaret stroked his hair gently. "No, sweetheart," she whispered through tears. "That's your father, your other father, and he would have loved you more than anything." The clinic paid substantial compensation. We chose not to pursue a scandal, because somehow, through a terrible mistake, a miracle had been born. Leo is Daniel's son in every way that truly matters, in love, in care, in the life they share. And genetically, he is the living memory of a man I never met, yet feel endlessly grateful toward. Margaret changed overnight. She adores Leo now, calls him Fate's second chance. Sometimes I catch her watching him with tears shimmering in her eyes. "Forgive me, Anna," she whispers every time. "I almost destroyed the most precious thing in my life." And I did forgive her, because she hadn't rejected Leo out of cruelty. She simply didn't know she was turning away the last piece of her lost son. Life has taught me something strange. Sometimes the fiercest storms hide the most beautiful miracles. Leo is growing up surrounded by the love of 2 fathers, one who holds his hand every day and one who watches over him from faded photographs. And somehow, I know he is proud of his son.